Alright, welcome to section 3.1. I want to thank Miss Hyder for subbing today. Hopefully you have your note packets out and you have a pencil and you're ready to go. So we'll begin by doing our skill check here. So if you could pause and just take a minute to do that, it should only take about 30 seconds. Okay, now that you've done that, you know that the answer should be negative 12, 10, 6, and 1. This is an interesting problem because you have 5 over 1 times 1 over 5. So when you multiply top times top and bottom times bottom, you get the fraction 5 divided by 5, which of course is equal to 1. So our goal today in this lesson, section 3.1, is to solve two-step equations, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to take 2 steps to solve them. You're going to use 2 different properties. So you might add and multiply, or subtract and divide, or some other combination of the two. So on example 1, our goal is to solve 3x plus 7 equals to negative 5, and our goal is to check our solution to make sure that it works. A reminder that a solution is some value for x that's going to make this equation true, which means that the expression on the left-hand side is the same as the expression on the right-hand side. So obviously we start with our original equation. You don't have to write that down again, but the first step you should know is that you need to subtract 7 from both the left and the right side of the equation. When you do that, you're left with 3x minus 12. After that, you have to divide, of course, by 3. Notice we did 2 steps. I had to subtract 7 first, then divide both sides by 3. Finally, you'll simplify by dividing 3 by 3 and negative 12 by 3, and you get your answer. The solution is negative 4. That means that x has to be negative 4 for this equation to be true. Now notice again that I kind of went in the opposite order of PEMDAS. Normally I would do adding and subtracting last, but when I'm solving, I have to do that first, and then I divide after that. Let's check our work here. So to check, you take your variable x, you plug in negative 4 in for that x. Of course, 3 times negative 4. That looks weird. It looks like it disappeared on me. There it is. So 3 times negative 4, well, that has to be negative 12, right? Negative 12 plus 7, negative 5. It works out. Okay, now, again, the idea here is that you should pause the video now and then let the students work on numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 for about maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so hopefully it's been that time now, and we're going to go over each problem. The first step in this problem is to subtract 1 from both sides. That 1 will cancel out. The 5 will turn into a 4. And of course, if you divide by 4 on both sides, you should get x equals 1. If you checked your solution, you know that 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5, and that checks out. On number 2, you have 3n plus 8 equals 2. Well, first, you should know to subtract 8 from both sides. You should have 3n equals negative 6. Then, after that, you must divide both sides by 3. N is negative 2. Now, of course, to solve the third one, you subtract 1 from both sides. Actually, I'm sorry, subtract 9 from both sides. And negative 8 equals 2 times r. You divide both sides by 2, and you get r is equal to negative 4. To check, you put negative 4 in for r. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 9 is 1. It works. In the last one, subtract 20. 2 minus 20 is negative 18, equals 6h. You divide by 6. H is negative 3. Okay, check your work. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18 plus 20. Oops, that doesn't seem quite right here. It should be though. Yep, it is. Negative 18 plus 20, that's negative 2, or positive 2. Alright, so now that we've solved two-step equations using multiplying and subtracting, or multiplying and adding, now we're going to use addition and multiplication to solve. Okay, so I have the equation x divided by 2 minus 3 equals 1. Of course, the first thing I want to do is add 3 to both sides, like so. Okay, so I have a little crosshair in there for some reason. That's okay. The negative 3 and the positive 3 cancel out. The 1 and the 3 come together to make 4. Now, I want to undo the division. I have x divided by 2. So to get rid of division, I must multiply by 2 on both sides of the equation. And that's going to get 2x over 2, which is 1x, and 2 times 4 on the right side is 8. Now let's check our equations, make sure that that is the solution, that x is 8 will make this equation true. Well, for that x, we're going to put that 8 in. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So it works out. And again, feel free to pause these videos or rewind if you have to, if you need more time to write things down. Specifically on this one, I know that I'm going pretty fast because I can talk a lot faster than you can probably write. So make sure that you pause and get some time to write these down. Okay, it's time to solve and do some work yourself. So again, pause the video. Give about 5-6 minutes for students to complete this work. If they need more time, then give them some more time. Okay. First step is to add 8 to both sides. Multiply by 4. B is 36. Next equation, add 2 to both sides. Multiply by 6. C is 48. Okay, on the next one, add 1 to both sides. Multiply by 5. D is 15. And finally, add 8 to both sides. Multiply by 2. Alright, so make sure you check those answers and that they are correct. 36, 48, 15, 40. Alright, we have 2 more examples. So, we're solving an equation now that has a negative coefficient. Remember that a coefficient, we studied that word before. That was in Unit 2. A coefficient is the number that is by the variable term. So let's identify the coefficient in this equation. What is the coefficient? Well, there's the variable. The coefficient is the negative 4. And this minus sign actually acts as a negative 4. And you can see here that they do that. Instead of having negative or minus 4y, they change that to add the opposite of 4y. So it's a negative 4. So here's how we solve that equation. First, you subtract 7 from both sides, and the 7 will associate with this negative 7 and become 0. And you're left with negative 4y equals 12. Then you're going to divide both sides by that negative 4. Of course, y has to be negative 3. Now let's check the answer. Go ahead and put negative 3 in for y, negative 4 times negative 3 is a positive 12, plus 7 is 19. It works. Yet again, a few more minutes to practice. Another 5 or 6 minutes for students to complete numbers 10, 11, and 12. Let's check our work. First, you subtract 12 from both sides. Be careful. I know that some students probably get 0 when this happens, but you're subtracting 12 from negative 12. Negative 12 minus 12 more is actually negative 24. So S must be 6. If you got 0 for S, you would have known right away that your solution was incorrect. Because if you put 0 in for S, negative 4 times 0 is 0. 12 is not the same as negative 12. First step on number 11, subtract 6 from both sides. Negative 2m equals negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 2. M is 1. And finally, Subtract 5 from both sides, divided by -1. Remember, I don't want to have negative n as part of my answer. I want to make sure that n is positive, so I actually divide by the -1 coefficient. Excuse me. Okay, so check those answers. The last example is probably the hardest one, and I want to make sure that we spend enough time on it. You might have noticed that I left quite a bit of time in the video for this because I want you to work on this. The total cost of repairing a car is the sum, what does that mean? You know that should mean plus. We must add up the amount paid for parts and the amount paid for labor. You paid $78 for parts. $78 for parts. And $45 for each hour of labor. The total cost to repair the car was $168. Now the question is, I'm going to underline the question, how many hours did it take to repair the car? Now the first step you want to do with these problems is do what I did. Mark up the important information. You know that you're going to have to be adding something, and specifically note you have to add the parts plus the labor. And that should equal your total costs, right? Look at where those words match up. Total cost equals the sum adding together parts and labor. So if I wrote that down, total cost is equal to the cost for each hour of labor times the hours plus the parts. So if H is the number of hours spent on labor, then the total cost, $168, is equal to the parts, 78, plus 45 for each hour. 45 times H hours. To solve then, you subtract 78, you get 90. 90 equals 45H, so H equals 2 hours. The hardest part about this is writing the equation. I tried to help you by identifying a strategy. Match up words that make sense. Look for operation words and words like is. Alright, it's the end of the lesson now, so we'll go through 4 examples just to make sure that you understand the concept. So again, pause the video one final time. You're going to go through example 1, example 2, and example 3, and example 4. Okay, so you should be done with those 4 examples now. If not, pause and make sure that they're done. Okay, so to sum it up, oops, something went wrong there. One moment, there it is. X has to equal 5. Check your answer. For the second one, not sure where my things keep going there. One moment. Y has to be 12 in example 2. Finally, A has to be -6 for example 3. And I showed a little bit more work on that one, knowing that you might have had questions. Remember when I subtract 45 minus 9 to get 36? There you have it. And that should be all. I thought there was one more example, but I was mistaken. Alright, so at this point now, it's time to work on your TAN booklet in the back of your binder, section 3.1. Ms. Hyder has the answer key. If you need to rewind and watch any part of it, again, you feel free to do so. Thanks. We'll go on to the next lesson soon.